In 1963, a shocking prank on the set of The Andy Griffith Show spiraled into chaos. Cast members burst into Andy Griffith's hotel room only to catch him in bed with a co-star. CBS executives panicked. Sponsors threatened to pull millions in advertising. Secret meetings were held behind closed doors. America's most beloved small-town sheriff was about to be exposed, and what happened next nearly ended The Andy Griffith Show forever. Sheldon Leonard had been in the business long enough to recognize raw talent when he saw it. In the 1950s, he watched Andy Griffith perform in No Time for Sergeants on Broadway, and at that moment, he knew Griffith was destined for something bigger. Griffith's charm was effortless, his humor magnetic. He wasn't just an actor, he was the perfect lead for television. And so, The Andy Griffith Show was born, an idea Leonard later called one of the most significant decisions of his career. But could Griffith carry a series? CBS needed proof. On February 15, 1960, The Danny Thomas Show aired an episode titled Danny Meets Andy Griffith, introducing the world to Sheriff Andy Taylor. But this wasn't the sheriff audiences would come to love. He was exaggerated, leaning into country stereotypes. Even Frances Bavier, who later played Aunt Bee, appeared, but as a completely different character. It was a test run, a business move, and CBS was watching closely. When audiences responded with enthusiasm, General Foods, a major sponsor, didn't hesitate. They backed the show instantly. With funding secured, The Andy Griffith Show premiered on October 3, 1960. From the beginning, one thing set Mayberry apart. It wasn't just a town, it was an escape. Unlike other shows of the 1960s, The Andy Griffith Show never mentioned the Cold War or the Civil Rights Movement. It existed in a world that felt frozen in time, an era even older than the one in which it aired. That was intentional. But something else was happening behind the scenes. Griffith himself was struggling to find his footing. Early on, he leaned heavily into exaggerated Southern charm, playing Andy Taylor with wide smiles and over-the-top enthusiasm. But he soon realized that wasn't sustainable. By the second season, he made a drastic shift. Instead of being the source of comedy, he became the steady, level-headed anchor of the show, allowing the supporting cast to shine. And nobody shined brighter than Don Knotts. Originally, there were no plans for a permanent deputy. But when Knotts read for a one-episode role as Barney Fife, the chemistry was undeniable. Leonard immediately signed him for a year. That decision changed everything. Suddenly, The Andy Griffith Show had a comedic force that transformed the dynamic. Andy became the wise problem solver, while Barney's over-the-top antics provided the laughs. But not every casting decision went as smoothly. Frances Bavier, the actress behind Aunt Bee, was a respected performer. But off-screen, tensions ran high. She and Griffith never got along. Griffith loved a relaxed, fun set filled with jokes and pranks. Bavier, she was serious, professional, and had little patience for nonsense. She felt sidelined, often watching Knotts steal the laughs she thought her character deserved. Resentment built over the years, boiling beneath the surface of Mayberry's perfect world. But in 1989, knowing she was dying, she made one final call to Griffith. "I'm sorry we didn't get along better," she admitted. "It was my fault." It was one of the last conversations she ever had. But the biggest shakeup came in 1965, when Don Knotts walked away after 5 seasons. Fans were stunned. Why would he leave at the peak of his career? The real reason? A financial misunderstanding that changed everything. When The Andy Griffith Show first started, Knotts signed a 5-year contract, earning about $1,250 per episode. It was a decent paycheck, but nothing compared to Griffith, who owned a majority stake in the show. As his contract neared its end, Knotts assumed the series was wrapping up. Believing his time in Mayberry was over, he signed a lucrative 5-film deal with Universal Studios. Then, at the last minute, CBS renewed The Andy Griffith Show. Knotts, already locked into his movie contract, was forced to walk away. Griffith, thinking Knotts had given an ultimatum, let him go without a fight. Without Barney Fife, the show was never the same. CBS scrambled to fill the void, introducing a new deputy, Warren Ferguson. On paper, Jack Burns seemed like the perfect replacement. He had a strong comedy background, but there was a problem. He wasn't Barney Fife. Fans never connected with him. After just 11 episodes, he was written out of the show without explanation. Mayberry lost something irreplaceable that day, and fans knew it. Another major casting misstep? Eleanor Donahue. She played Ellie Walker, a smart, independent pharmacist set up as Andy Taylor's love interest, but the chemistry just wasn't there. Even when Andy reached for Ellie's the night started as a harmless prank, but it spiraled into a full-blown scandal. No one expected the joke to unravel the biggest secret of all. When the disguised crew members stepped into the room, they weren't just delivering dinner. They walked straight into a shocking revelation. Caught in a moment they never intended to be exposed, Griffith and Corot had nowhere to hide. The whispers had been there for months, but now there was undeniable proof. Griffith's fury was instant, not just at being exposed, but at the fact that this could change everything. Corot, on the other hand, had a realization of her own. If he could betray his wife, what was stopping him from doing the same to her? She had already turned down his proposals, and now any lingering doubts she had about her decision were gone. Yet, despite the chaos behind the scenes, they carried on, pretending nothing had ever happened. Hollywood has always been a master of illusion, and the Andy Griffith Show was no exception. The world saw a picture-perfect town, a wholesome sheriff, and a life wrapped in small-town charm. But behind that carefully crafted image, the truth was far messier. The success of the show depended on its clean reputation, and any scandal, especially one like this, could shatter it. Griffith was strategic. He cut down romantic scenes between Andy Taylor and Helen Crump, minimizing anything that could fuel speculation. The cast followed suit, maintaining an eerie silence, even as rumors about the hotel incident swirled. But back then, it was easier to keep secrets. There were no viral tweets, no paparazzi waiting outside restaurants. Stars had the luxury of controlling their own narratives until they didn't. Even with its hidden tensions, the show's magic never faded. It wasn't just a feel-good sitcom, it had an uncanny ability to sneak deeper themes into its storytelling. It never outright tackled civil rights or the Vietnam War, but it made viewers reflect in subtle ways. One episode, Man in a Hurry, captured this perfectly. A fast-paced businessman found himself stranded in Mayberry, frustrated by the town's slow rhythm. Yet, by the end, he realized the value of taking a step back. It wasn't just an episode about patience. It was a commentary on the world outside Mayberry's borders. But despite its progressive undercurrents, the show wasn't immune to its era's blind spots. Griffith later admitted he regretted the absence of black residents in Mayberry, a flaw that stood out more as the years passed. The show's influence extended far beyond its final episode in 1968. CBS wasn't ready to let go, so Mayberry RFD was born. It brought back familiar faces, keeping the town alive. But something was missing. The humor, the emotional depth, everything that made the original special felt diluted. Still, viewers clung to it, pushing it into the top 10 of the Nielsen ratings. But television was changing. Networks wanted urban stories, younger audiences, and by 1971, Mayberry RFD became a casualty of CBS's infamous rural purge. The show was still popular, yet it was axed. Fans were stunned, but Mayberry wasn't done just yet. Years later, in 1986, Return to Mayberry reignited the nostalgia. The original cast, older but still beloved, brought the town back to life. Opie was about to become a father. Barney finally had his moment to run for sheriff, and the town welcomed them back like they had never left. It became the highest-rated television movie of the year, proving that Mayberry's charm was timeless. But there was one painful absence. Aunt Bee, actress Frances Bavier, struggling with her health, chose not to return. Instead, the movie acknowledged her passing, a quiet tribute to the woman who had been the heart of Mayberry for so long. Decades later, Mayberry still isn't forgotten. Every year, thousands gather in Mount Airy, North Carolina, Andy Griffith's real-life hometown, to celebrate Mayberry Days. Fans dress as their favorite characters. Vintage police cars line the streets. And for a few days, it feels like stepping back in time. The Andy Griffith Museum preserves the show's legacy, displaying original props and memorabilia that transport visitors into the past. Even today, reruns still pull in millions of viewers, proving that nostalgia never fades. So, what is it about Mayberry that keeps pulling people back? Maybe it's the simplicity, the sense of community.